David Waters on the line from Gators Breakdown, talking Florida football, obviously coming off a fine recruiting class and moving on to 2020. Cornerbacks coach Torian Gray just in the door. Obviously, he's been in the program before, comes directly from the Washington Redskins, and it hits him right out of the gate. Man, these kids look better. They're stronger. They're better conditioned. It just seems astounding to me that there would be that much of a difference in a couple of years at a place like Florida. You would think that the conditioning standards would always be first rate regardless of who's in play, but that wasn't necessarily the case.
No, it was the another failure of the Jim McElwain era, Mark. You and I, we talked ad nauseum about the offensive line and just how and McElwain even mentioned it himself, but never really did anything about it. It was like a turnstile at Disney World. The guys didn't have enough bodies when he came in. Recruited a little bit better, but they just weren't developed a whole lot at his time. And a lot of it goes back to the strength and conditioning under Mike Kent there. And after McElwain got fired and after he left, you started hearing stories of coming out and even players admitting that, Mark, they had to go somewhere else. They had to go to public gyms. They had to go work out somewhere else because they felt like they weren't getting the proper technique and strength and conditioning at Florida, which is a joke when you think about how much you're getting paid, and Jim McElwain learned from the best. He was a Nick Saban disciple, and let something like that fall through the cracks. That was a joke. And it really, Torian Gray saw it firsthand, and they're able to see it firsthand when he comes back. And I think that really goes back, and a lot of the strength and conditioning, I think you'll see it even more in year two. I think it really, instead of year one in the program, I think it even takes a higher step in year two. But you were able to see immediate results. The offensive line turned around and was a strength of the team, and not a lot of injuries there as well. Not a lot of injuries team-wide. I mentioned Marco Wilson going down with a knee injury, but that was pretty much it. They had some dings and bruises in preseason camp, but nothing where you were losing players like we saw Florida lose at times under Will Muschamp and under Jim McElwain. When Florida went to LSU and wrapped up the SEC East a couple of years ago with the Hurricane makeup game, the reason Florida wasn't picked to really win that game is because it was a mash unit on defense. You had Jared Davis out, Alex Anzalone out, and you had a lot of true freshmen making their appearance. And Florida was able to go to Baton Rouge and win that game. But it was a mash unit defense. They went on to Atlanta to get destroyed by Alabama just a couple weeks ago after that. But yeah, the strength and conditioning, and I'm glad Torian Gray was able to come in and notice that right away. That was a big difference, and Gator fans have noticed it as well.
Well, you nailed it with the connection with Nick Saban. If I'm an assistant coach under Nick Saban, I'm taking massive notes. I'm taking notes on everything. I'm doing everything carbon copy and thinking, well, I got my own style, my own personality, but why not take this blueprint wherever I go? Colorado State, I'm going to Colorado State, and for everything I can possibly do there with the resources I have, I'm going to do it exactly the way he does it. And then if I can find some little tweaks, sure. But that's just crazy that the strength and conditioning coach a situation was that far behind. And before we let you go, it's fun to see Steve Spurrier back on the sideline, 73 years old, gets the win in this Alliance of American Football 40-6. He's got the Orlando Apollos, and no pressure, doesn't have the grind, all that other stuff, but he gets out there and he's able to scheme, put plays together and matchups, and that's probably just fun for him at this point.
I mean, that's what Steve Spurrier's done, right? Just call ball plays. And you saw it in that game where they had a little trickeration. You've seen it circulate on social media. I think it's called the Orlando Special or something like that. And wide receiver ends up getting the ball in his hands from a reverse and ends up throwing a touchdown to quarterback Garrett Gilbert, I believe was who it was. So, yeah, Spurrier's in there enjoying it. Like you said, he gets to call ball plays now, and even he has some quips there. I think I even heard an audio piece where he was saying he's calling a play, and then at the very end of it, he tags it with, but tell him to catch it this time. So it's still Steve Spurrier there. And hey, look, I mean, Florida fans have been able to make a joke about that game a little bit this morning because it was Orlando versus Atlanta. So it was like, hey, look, Steve Spurrier put up a 40 spot on a Georgia team. We've seen this before. So it's but yeah, it's we'll see where this league goes. There's a lot of excitement around. We get to see former Gators. I know Austin Appleby was the backup quarterback there for that team. It was Earl Okine was in there as well. Leon Orr, I think, is another name out there that's circulating. Will Hill. There's a lot of former Gators in this league, and we'll see where it takes off. I know a lot of fans are excited about it, that it's different from the NFL. there. So it's the Gator, a lot of Gator players that we're used to seeing. If they don't make it in the NFL, maybe we'll get to see them in this new league.
Gators breakdown, people. Lock down on this thing. It's become the gold standard very quickly for Florida football coverage with David and everybody else on your favorite audio platform or here on YouTube. David, always appreciate the time. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks, Mark.